So he offered me $1,000 cash for my signature. On Friday I went out to the neighbours of the Warracknabeal Energy Parks. 96% of the neighbours of the Warracknabeal facility are opposed. Ross Johns is my name. I was born in Warracknabeal, farming west of Warracknabeal between Japarrit, Dimboola and Warracknabeal. My son's now taking over the operations of the farm. I love farming, I love agriculture. Agriculture is very important to humanity. Australia produces around about enough food to feed 80 million people. It's a huge responsibility of Australia's to continue to supply good quality, clean, fresh food to people in Indonesia, Pakistan, India, China and Japan. I was approached by a wind developer in 2018 to have wind towers on my property, and a very fast talking salesman straight out of Melbourne, could have been selling used cars, was trying to get me to sign this contract. And I asked him a few questions and a bit more detail about the project, and he said, don't worry about that, your neighbours are signed, all the community's signed, just sign this contract now. And I said, well, hang on a minute, I'm not going to sign a contract where I don't know what you're actually planning to do. He said, no, don't worry about that, we'll sort all that out later, just sign the contract. And when I failed to sign, he was of the mind that he would offer me some cash. So he offered me $1,000 cash for my signature. And if I was nervous of signing the contract before he offered me the cash, I was very nervous when he's offered me $1,000 cash for my signature. I was thinking, what really are in these contracts and what are these guys making out of these contracts to want my signature so very much? In the end, I've continued to talk to the wind developers to try and get more information about what they're planning, how they're planning it. Now bear in mind, that's 6 years on, and every time I talk to the community liaison person, they take notes and say, we'll look into that question and get back to you, and never do. There's a distinct lack of factual information available for community members and neighbours, and I think that's particularly unfair. If it can't be talked publicly and can't be openly discussed, what are these wind developers really hiding? I'm also have been elected president recently of the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. We've got in excess of 100 members, and I think there's a growing feeling of concern over the construction of renewables and the poor process that's been adopted by government. My role is to make sure we source accurate, factual information so that people can make good decisions. We have had a number of hosts at our meetings, so these are people that have signed the contract. They are also concerned about the potential negative impacts of the wind turbines. The environmental impacts, there's some huge concerns about 500-year-old gum trees being removed. There's impacts on wedge-tailed eagle populations and native raptors. Trying to get to the bottom of how much government is subsidising these multinationals to build these monoliths is pretty hard work, but generally accepted, it's $850,000 to $1 million per turbine per year, paid for by taxpayers and energy users in Australia. This is a non-commercial construction of energy. We need a commercial basis for energy production in Australia, and Australia can do so much better than using up prime agricultural land and vast amounts of prime agricultural land to build these wind turbines on. The one thing I can say is that I've travelled the world extensively, particularly with ABB grain. I've been to China several times, I've been to the Middle East, I've been to Iran. Australia is the only G20 country in the world that doesn't have a nuclear power policy. We seem to be the odd ones out in the fact that we don't want to adopt all the opportunities to keep our energy prices cheap and affordable for Australians. I think we need to review our nuclear power policy, and I think we need to adopt best practice, best global practice. for our energy future for the next 50 to 100 years. It's not about the next 25 years, which these wind turbines are short term. For goodness sake, intergenerational farms have been farming this land for 150 years. It's almost just a blip on the pie. We need to be thinking about Australia for the long term. It continues to concern me how speedily government wants to push these renewables through without proper process and procedure. The development facilitation program that the Victorian government has implemented short circuits a lot of the safeguards in environmental and societal norms that everyone else in society has to abide by. Why is government doing this? What has government got to hide? I'm very concerned. If it's that good a thing for Australia, let's just do it in a logical, considered way. Let's not rush into this and suddenly find it's a huge mistake, or the decommissioning issues down the track are hugely costly. So the people who are going to be paying the price for this are hard-working Australians. We should have the cheapest energy in the world. For goodness sake, we export 1 million tonnes of coal per day to keep the energy prices cheap in China. Why can't we have the cheapest energy in the world in Australia? And we should. We deserve it and we should, and our governments have neglected the Australians.